Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to continue our conversations about the kingdoms and finish off with kingdoms Bacteria and Archaea. These are the two prokaryotic kingdoms, and remember that prokaryotic means that there is no nucleus. So all of these different bacteria and archaebacteria that we're going to talk about, none of them have a nucleus in their cells. So we're going to start with Kingdom Archaea. Archaea bacteria are just a specific type of bacteria. They are prokaryotic, like I said, which means that they do not have a nucleus. They're unicellular. They have a cell wall, but it does not have peptidoglycan. And I know you're probably like, okay, but what is that? It's just a type of starch that would make the cell wall be pretty sturdy, but in Archaea, they do not have that. They can be motile or non-motile, meaning that they can move, but some archaea bacteria don't move. They're autotrophic or heterotrophic, right? Some make their own energy, some need to consume other things to get energy. These bacteria are the first organisms on Earth. They are the oldest. We can trace them back millions of years, and they are adapted for extreme environments. And when I say extreme, I mean places that you would not find other living organisms, like the salty pools of the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is so salty that you can just float on it because your buoyancy is like counteracted by the salt, but Archaea love to live there. Volcanic hot springs that are way too hot for anything else to survive, you'll find them there. Swamps, black organic mud pits where there's no oxygen. Pretty much anywhere that you wouldn't think to find a living thing, you'll probably be able to find some archaea bacteria in there. Now, your other type of bacteria is like everything else, your eubacteria. And in this case, it's pretty similar to Archaea. They're prokaryotic, they're unicellular. Their cell walls do have peptidoglycan, which is the difference there. So Archaea do not have it, but every other bacteria does. They are motile or non-motile, autotrophic or heterotrophic. So some move, some don't, some make their own energy, some have to consume things to get energy. Very similar to Archaea bacteria. But you'll notice that these bacteria do not live in extreme environments. These are the types of bacteria that you would just find, like, kind of out and about in, like, your normal everyday life. Like E. coli, bacteria that's found in like your gut, or like strep throat. All of those are like just kind of normal environments that you could find bacteria in. Now, bacteria has two types of reproduction, asexual or sexual. And Archaea or eubacteria, they will go through either of these types of reproduction. So the asexual reproduction is called binary fission. And basically what it is the DNA will replicate and then the cell just divides in half and you get two clones for daughter cells. So they're identical and it's just the cell itself dividing in half. The sexual type of reproduction is called conjugation. And conjugation includes connecting two cells together through a bridge called a pili. So this little like extra piece that is going to connect these two cells, that's called a pili, and it will connect the cells, and then you can see that the genetic information can be exchanged and they can go through sexual reproduction and then create two new cells with this increased genetic diversity because this genetic material has been exchanged. Okay. Now, there's a lot of reasons that we like bacteria. Probably the number one for our life, just like in general, life on Earth, is that they are decomposers. They break down organic compounds, they're used in water treatment plants, but realistically, they just are really good at cycling nutrients that have been used back into the environment so that they can be used again. Also, they help with nitrogen fixation, so they can convert unusable nitrogen that's found in the atmosphere into usable forms to make proteins, to help plants out, to help humans get nitrogen into their systems. Another big use of bacteria And then the last one that I'm going to talk about today is the food products. Bacteria is used for fermentation. We've talked about fermentation before. They take in sugar as energy and then they produce lactic acid as waste. So if you have ever eaten yogurt or pickles or sour cream or kimchi, any of those things and more, tons more, but those are some big ones, you have bacteria to thank because they are the ones that made that food possible by going through fermentation and producing lactic acid. There are some bacterial diseases, and I know that you've heard of some of them, but how do they actually damage the body, right? So they damage cells and tissues of the host because they eat the host cells. They use the host cells for food. And then the bacteria will release toxins that go through the entire body and then disrupt all the other cells and all the other cell activities. So some of these are maybe things that you've heard of before, tuberculosis, E. coli, pneumonia. These are major bacterial infections, and the way that they are able to spread and hurt their hosts is by doing these two things, right? They use the host cells for food, and then they release their toxins to disrupt all the other cells around it and all the other cells' normal activities. So let's talk about how we prevent that. So there are two ways to prevent bacterial diseases, and then you can also control bacterial growth. So one of the big ways to prevent bacterial diseases is to get a vaccine. Vaccines are ways to expose a body to a disease, whatever it may be, by exposing it to a weakened or killed bacteria. This allows your body to learn how to defend itself without actually being under attack of a bacterial infection. So your body creates antibodies to protect itself, and then if you ever really did get infected by whatever the disease may be, your body already has a defense system, and it immediately goes to work, and it immediately will fight off whatever the bacterial infection the vaccine was for. There's also antibiotics. I'm sure that you've all taken antibiotics at some point in your life, but they're chemical compounds that will either kill the bacteria or prevent the bacteria from reproducing. And that's a big key thing. So killing the bacteria straight out is obviously good because you don't want the bacteria anymore. But preventing the bacteria from reproducing means that you're not going to get any more bacteria forming. And that gives your body a chance to defend itself again because it's not being overwhelmed by the amount of bacteria that can be found within your body. So preventing it from reproducing is helpful for your body to be able to get the upper hand again. Antibiotics only work on bacteria though, not viruses. There are such things as antiviral medication, but antibiotics do not work on viruses. And we're going to talk about why that is true in the next set of notes, because the next set of notes is all about viruses. Now I mentioned you can also control bacteria growth, and there's a number of ways you can control it, but we're just going to talk about 3 ways that you can control bacteria growth. Number 1 is disinfectants. So that's like a chemical solution. Think like bleach or like a cleaning solution that's going to just straight up kill the pathogens. This could kill it by destroying the cell wall or preventing it from reproducing. Then there's sterilization with high heat. So when you heat up bacteria to such a high temperature, most of them will not be able to survive. Obviously, Archaea can survive at high temperatures, but when we're talking about like bacterial swabs that you might take at like a doctor's office to see if you have strep throat, they're going to sterilize those swabs after with high heat so that those bacteria just die so that they don't spread to anybody else. And then on the flip side of that is refrigeration. And refrigeration is just putting bacteria in like really low temperatures, and it prevents or slows down bacterial reproduction. And as we mentioned before, that's super important to prevent like out of control growth of bacteria. All right, that's it for today. We're going to talk about viruses next time, but great job. Proud of you. I'll see you then.